It's a big mug there. It's like the
Big as
biggest
my
mug I've ever
face.
seen.
Oh, nice.
You got like a liter in there, liter of coffee.
Yeah, it's tea, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm on tea as well now. I'm on the good old English breakfast tea with milk. That's it. It's not breakfast though. Sorry, Eric. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna. So, is that a regular thing for you? Tea is that a serious deal for you? I mean,
What do you mean? Do you mean
well,
that I
I mean,
drink all the time?
yeah,
Yeah. Not like
He
10
means
cups
you
a day.
take your tea seriously.
Oh yeah. Kind of. No, not really. No, not in the way that you're gonna mean. No. I just like British person drink tea. You just drink tea. You wake up and you drink tea with milk. You don't think about it.
right.
But like I went off it for years, and I was drinking coffees and all the weird shit, and the weird teas and all that. I tried all the different things. Coconut oil and all that stuff, and then I was trying black coffee for exercise, for before workout and stuff, and it just wasn't good. It wasn't enjoying it at all. There's something about it. It just made me rattled. I found out later. You actually solved it for me. You said on Twitter once that don't drink coffee in the first hour because it amplifies your cortisol or something like this. And this is when I was working out first thing in the morning. I was like knocking back a coffee in a rush to get out, and it wasn't good. So then I ended up just going back to English breakfast tea with milk. There seemed to be something about the timing of it, drinking that, and then 50 minutes later, it was perfect. Don't know why. Like I could never do workout where I just wake straight up, close and straight out. I could never do that. But if I don't go in the first 50 minutes, it's 50-50 whether I'm going to go later in the day or not. Depends on the weather though. Obviously if it gets really hot here, I'll go and I'll have to go at lunchtime or something. Sorry, if it's in the winter here, I'll go at lunchtime. But if it's really hot, then I have to go in the morning. No choice.
Right.
So,
because you're doing most of your workouts outdoors then?
Most of them outdoor in the morning, yeah.
Yeah.
August, I just couldn't do anything. Even like didn't matter how early I got up, it was too hot. So I just kind of did stuff in the house.
What is too hot for you?
Oh, it was like because it's humid as well. So it was like too hot for me is literally if I can't run barefoot on the road. So like
I've had that happen where the bottoms of my feet are all blistered because I burned them from a few times running on.
It's crazy, like 9:30 in the morning, and your feet are melting on the tarmac. They like because where I am just now is like 20 minutes. It's like 20 minutes walk from the shore. It's like a rugged piece of shore that I love it. No, hardly any tourists, just old guys fishing, and like locals at the weekend having a barbecue. That's it. And divers. There's like a dive team because they're a diving school. But so like I have to go on to run. Like I run there and go swimming, or like it's not good for swimming. I kind of just play around. But like to run there, I have to go on the road because there's like it's built up between here and there is like streets and proper roads and stuff. So I have to run on the tarmac, and like I've done all sorts of things. I've got pairs of like flip flops, sandals, things hidden at different places so that I can use them for. There's a little bit that's really rough rock. It's hard to walk on, and it ruins. You lose the tempo. So like I'll run, and then there's this bit it's really hard to walk on in bare feet to get down to the shore. So like I've different places where I hide flip flops from people and animals and whatever, and fire them on. And then
anybody ever steal them?
Not yet, but when I went back to Scotland, I don't know. I think they seem to be pretty safe as far as I know. But like
I guess there's not too many people picking up random shoes they find in the bushes or whatever.
Well, I hope not. But I went back to Scotland. I came back and they were completely covered in dust. So I'm guessing they were just left alone. But I don't know. But they just they tarred some of the road down to where I go swimming now. So there's more I can run on before I have to like tap dance on the rocks try to get there. But yeah, that's the best place I have to go to take the ocean pill.
Mm-hmm. Eric, your mug is it's like the polar opposite of mine. It's like a thimble.
Yeah.
What's
it's
in
a
it?
small T. It's just a little one, little guy.
So I was thinking, if we give a big picture overview or whatever today, and then we could kind of do this psychophysical approach to different things each week. Maybe pick something, and then how do you look at this in a sort of integrated way? Whether it's like a nutrition or workout or whatever. I think there's like kind of
that's a lot of pressure, man. It's like a lecture.
Yeah,
I'm a little worried there. That's a lot
okay. So how would you rather do
it? I'm messing with you.
Okay. Okay, no worries. I'm used to lecturing though in lessons. I'm like, stop me if I go into lecture mode, because usually when I'm on Zoom, I'm having to talk nonstop.
Yeah.
So now it's like a reflex. As soon as I see the little blue light, I'm just don't shop.
I'd love to hear. Why don't you go in to explain how you came up with the title? Because you've been talking about this term for a while.
Okay. Okay, so we'll just start talking then. This can be the beginning. Okay.
Yeah, we already have started talking.
We have indeed, yeah.
I think I've been talking, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I thought it was just me here. Cool. Okay, so psychophysical. So this is a word that I didn't come up with myself, although I've kind of redefined it and expanded it, which I'll explain in a minute. But I originally got it from F. Matthias Alexander, and he was talking a lot about the psychophysical unity of, you would say clumsy phrases like the psychophysical unity of the workings of the human organism. But basically, you can just think of somebody as a psychophysical whole. He also used the phrase psychophysical self, which is a good way of thinking about it. And basically, what he meant was it's impossible to separate the psychological, or what we normally think of as mind, from what we normally think of as body. That you just can't separate them. And from this, from failing to understand this, a lot of the problems modern life come from failing to understand this. Mm-hmm. And he developed a technique to bring people back together and to treat them as a psychophysical whole, which I can talk more about in maybe in a different podcast probably. But so when he says, so he would say psychophysical to kind of just as a catch-all phrase, and he's not saying mind and body are the same thing. He's saying that they're inseparable. So this is like a mistake a lot of people make when they hear mind-body concepts. They tend to think that mind and body are the same thing. Well, obviously they're not, because sensation of part of your arm is not the same thing as understanding the mechanics of the relationships between the different parts of your arm. These are different realms, but they're obviously inseparable. So I've just taken the word. So, like people, so I'm mostly known on, we know each other from Twitter. Most people listening to this on Twitter know us from Twitter probably. And I'm usually talking about posture and things like that, coordination, movement. And for me, posture is interesting because it's the best example of being psychophysical, because your mind and body are involved all the time. Your emotions are getting dragged up and down based on your posture, and your posture's affected by your emotions. So most people understand psychophysical like that, where they think, okay, if my body's a certain way, I'll feel a certain way. If I work out, I feel better. If I'm physically down, I'll feel down. If I hold myself up, I feel more up. So people have a sort of intuitive understanding of psychophysical like that now. But for me, it's broader than that. It also includes what we normally think of as intellectual things. So an intellectual understanding of the movement and the mechanics, as well as the feelings of the movements, as well as the just emotional experiences you have as you're doing things or not doing things. So that's where the term came from, but I've kind of expanded it now to be basically everything. And by everything, I mean all the different domains of life, whether you're talking about what's normally called physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, social, whatever. And that you can't separate what's the mind stuff from the body stuff. Mm-hmm. You can separate them in words, but you can't separate them in reality. And one of the things that I've been working on for years now is what are the best things you can do in life that are in different domains of life, whether, you know, fitness or things you're learning, or, you know, social life, anything. How do you piece them all together in such a way that makes you more integrated, that makes you more whole? And this is what I kind of call a psychophysical approach to life in general. And we kind of all made friends on Twitter because I think you two have something that's kind of similar way of looking at things. And obviously Eric, you were talking more about nutrition tends to be, and you're talking more about fitness things, Keith. And I think altogether it's a way of looking at things and a way of acting and a way of understanding how things relate to one another that's useful for people as well. But I know you Keith, you said for you it's more about having like an integrated way of approaching things. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So when I was thinking about this question, I guess, what does psychophysical mean to me? I started to think like, are you trying to bridge the gap between like your mind and your body? Or like, how is that happening? Or if you see, like, the image that came to my mind is, if mind and body were two different things and there's a like a wall between them, are you trying to climb over the like create ladders you could climb over the wall back and forth? Is that the connection you want to make? Is that bridging the gap between the two? Is that making them communicate better? And I was thinking about that for a while, and then it occurred to me that, like, no, that's just, I mean, that may be, they may get you somewhere, but actually what you, at least what I want to do more so is, I don't want there to be a division between the two. Like, I want the, I think when I think about it as a divided, something divided, and try to bridge a gap between the two, it always remains something divided. But if I could get rid of those walls, and if my thoughts come through physically, then I think that's a more, that's more in the place where I want to be, where like motion feels intuitive. I don't have to think things out necessarily because the intelligence comes through physically. So that was my interpretation of psychophysical, and I know for at least that's the one that works for, I guess, the things that I do. I mean, for your purposes, I think it makes more sense, Kevin, to break them out into having the words come through to describe the physical motions, because it's useful in that way. But
and I think because Kevin is dealing with people who are disintegrated, you know, like there is a barrier. However, you know, maybe it's a man-made barrier that they've erected in their own mind between the movements and their subconscious self. But yeah, I think you have to. I think that's my take on Kevin. I mean, I've never worked with him, but just from hearing you talk, yeah, the barrier is illusory, but you know, it feels real, and so Kevin has to deal with that with his clients.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so like when I'll use the words mind and body and spirit or whatever all the time, but it's just, you need to use some kind of words. There's no other words. There isn't really a word for all of it, and if there was, you can't really do anything with it. So yeah, so people kind of are disintegrated and need to help putting themselves back together again. But the doing it is obviously much harder because once you start talking about it, you're already separating the different things. It's one of the hardest. It's one of the hardest things to get over. So, like, one of the reasons that I think people are so disintegrated is it's just pressure of modern life. Everything is trying to fragment people. You know, you're being fragmented internally. Your emotions are being pulled one way. You're being crammed into your head to think these other things, and then you're being made to live in a rigid way physically. Everything is against you. You have to actively do something to integrate or reintegrate yourself. It's not going to happen. No, it's not in the people. It's not in the interest of people with power to have a lot of integrated people. So, because it's not what they want. They're trying to. They're doing their own integration that isn't at our level of integrating ourselves.
And I mean, isn't disintegration also almost a law of the universe? You know, like the pull
Entropy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think,
thermodynamic law.
yeah, like I saw some stat. I don't remember where. I couldn't cite it, but I think it's true. Is that one of the reasons why humans require so many more calories than, say, an animal of equivalent body size? Is that we're just so much more complex, and that means so much more can go wrong, and so we're subject to a lot stronger entropy. And so a lot of our calories are just dedicated to holding it all together, maintaining homeostasis, keeping we have, our brains are so complex, and that just means it's like driving a really nice, expensive sports car. Things can really go wrong because there's so many more moving parts.
And it requires constant maintenance, which I think most people don't pay attention to. They'll wait until there's some even minor problems people don't pay attention to. They wait till it's something really apparent that happens to them, and then that's when they make the change. But often you have to work back years and years of issues to fix the core of what was actually causing the problem in the first place.
Yeah, I always say to people that when it comes to posture, the only way is down. If you don't make an intervention to do something, you'll just go down. You're not going to go up more with life.
You see it too. That's not like a hard for people to understand, and because you see like just in general, they get hunched, and my grandmother used to call it, "I'm going closer to the grave." But that's what happens. Like you see the example all around you all the time.
I think people they grasp that, but the problem is they accept it. It's just part of aging. It's just part of.
Exactly. I mean, you look at the road sign of the elderly people crossing; they're hunched over. You you see little toy figures of old people that children have sometimes. They're all hunched over. It's predictive programming. It's just assumed. But I mean, like posture is just, to me, it's just a subset of a bigger problem. It's just what I deal with most of the time, but it really isn't. It's much more than that. It's about just happens to be the nexus between mind and body, because it's always there. No matter what you're doing, no matter what you think you're doing, it's still there. And it's just a good sort of jumping off point, a good starting place for working on yourself in a kind of with a bigger aim.
Right.
By that I mean just be more in control of yourself, be more conscious of your movements, be more conscious of yourself, being in control of your inner dialogue. All these things are connected just with posture alone, even before you get to other things.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking the homeostasis thing. Our feelings are doing that all the time. So, like even in posture, to get someone to change their movements, to change their posture, posture's made out of movements. The new movements that they have to do are going to feel wrong when they first do them because they're new. So when they do them, it feels wrong, and you immediately revert to the old way, even if you want to do the other movement, because it's always the feeling sense is just telling you something's wrong, something's changed, it's wrong, action required to get it back to the way it was. So you're constantly going against that, and going through the process of going against that, then you learn a lot about life in general, and you have a different. I've read not hundreds, but I've read many books on, very philosophical minded books on mind body relationship and things like that. 2 or 3 weeks of really working in your posture will teach you way more than hundreds of books will on the mind body relationship. And our words talking about mind and body is already a problem. So sometimes I talk about, I'll maybe say principles or rules rather than mind, or and then body, I'll maybe talk, like I work with a video, so I'll maybe talk about what you can see in the video more. So that's like the body's included there, but you're sidestepping using the words, and I'm kind of like sneaking in a new worldview to people without them realizing it or without them having to talk about it.
Kevin, having, I guess, done this for been in this mindset of posture for so long, or like, is there one thing that you do every day that would benefit people?
Yeah,
posture lesson with you.
I work on myself every day doing different sort of movement experiments. This is basically what I teach. The same thing as I teach people, I'm doing myself. Obviously, I'm just further along with it than people.
Right.
But than the people I teach. But in terms of just the best thing someone can do right at the start is just to get you well, here's another thing about psychophysical is often with, some things are more what you would call mind, obviously, are more lean towards what we call mind, and some things more lean towards what we call body or emotions. And but often with things, part of it's missing. So even if you just keep it real, if you dice it up simply and just say physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, some things are really missing in one of these components. So for posture, one of the things that are missing is the intellectual. So people are stuck in this sort of emotional feeling, and the physical components of posture, and they don't really pay attention to the intellectual side of it. Even let's just say I've seen and met various anatomists and physiologists, and they're not in any better shape than a normal person. So there's a disconnect between the intellectual understanding and the application of it. So for people, so what people can do that's useful is to start helping them to start working towards a wider understanding of posture and adding an intellectual component to it, because you've already lost, you've got plenty of emotions and feelings about it, and the physical side of it is obvious. The best thing you can do is to create a second viewpoint of your posture, and by that, the easiest thing to use is video. So you just film yourself sitting at a screen, side on, for 20 minutes, so you forget about it, work on emails or whatever it is, something, or if you're like coding or something that you're lost in and you forget the camera's recording you, and then just watch the camera back later, especially like on high speed, and just watch all the movements you're doing and watch the different shapes you're making, and it's horrible. It's embarrassing, I've done this, and by doing that, you're building up part of your mind that's now been analytical about. You've stepped out, you've zoomed out, you've kind of stepped back from being lost in the feelings and the sensations of it. And now there's part of you that can analyze, and you can start looking at relationships, and you can take a still image in the video and look for how the parts are related, and then you can slow it down and you can see how which parts, try and figure out which parts are moving first and stuff. There's a lot to that, but basically the first step is just to start seeing what you're doing rather than try to feel even more what you already feel, because it doesn't work. So you're trying to find the best place. People always say to me, I just don't know what it should feel like. Neither do I, because the feelings change every day. That's not the way to analyze it, and it's definitely not the way to judge it whether it's good or bad, because as I said earlier, the new thing is going to feel wrong, and the wrong thing is going to feel right. So the answer, the long answer to that's a long answer to your question, Keith. But basically, the best thing someone can do at the beginning is to film themselves and see what they're doing. Because if you can't see what you're actually doing, then you can't change it.
Yeah.
And you won't be doing what you think you're doing. I've never ever had someone who always thinks they're doing who always does what they think they're doing. It's never happened, including me.
You said you'll be horrified at what you see, right?
Maybe, yeah. I was.
That's got to be. I mean, that's got to be a really important part, right? Like it sort of breaks the hold. It kind of. I don't know. Like it's like a shock to your nervous system. It's like, wow, okay, so maybe I'm not doing things the way I should have been doing.
Yeah.
That's got to be like a really important part of the whole process.
That's a psychophysical event. Yeah, it's a psychophysical event. sometimes you need the big emotional reaction to lead you to an intellectual exploration of something that then changes the physical, to divide it like that. Obviously, all these things are happening together and never separated. It depends where you put your attention. So for me,
probably especially a wake up call for someone who thinks themselves kind of like shape fit. They want to correct you in some way, but they're active and they think, I'm a healthy person. But when I guess when you're in action, there's no denying it that you're just not moving the way you intend. It's especially shattering like you're gonna go cry in a corner, but like oh shit, I didn't understand myself as well as I thought I did.
Totally, yeah. And for me, I was working for a few years in this field, helping people with this by manipulating them directly. And then I felt one thing and I felt great, and I thought I was doing all these things when I moved, and then I just did something that's utterly obvious now, but it wasn't then, was film myself and watch what happens. And then I was like, watched it, and it wasn't what I thought I was doing. I thought I was lengthening my back, making my back longer, getting taller, lengthening instead of contracting. And I looked, instead I was doing a massive curve in my lower back. That didn't feel like that at all. It felt like it was expanding it straight up. And that was that's like a professional embarrassment as well as a personal one, because it's obvious. We have film, watch film. So like Alexander, who I mentioned earlier, he used three mirrors. This is the early 20th century. So you can do it with mirrors too, but it's not as accurate as a video. But the other reason to use videos, people they can't deny it. You can agree. So you're in a different realm now. So okay, you felt like you moved this part first. Video, we can both see the video. You moved a different part first, or you didn't even move that part at all. You can't argue with it. So they're like, the person is confronted all the time. I felt this for definite, but I can see that's not what happened. So now you're really humble in your opinions of things now. So like, you don't even know if you're literally leaning to the left or leaning to the right. How do you know how to fix the world? It's like absurd. To work with someone, you have to annoy them. You have to make them feel bad. I have to make them feel bad, not to make them feel at ease, because you're just doing more of what they want.
Harder to do that at first when you first started teaching? Like, did you feel like you're like I really should push this guy or whatever?
Oh yeah, because I'm not like a one of these tough love kind of guys. Yeah, I'm not any of that at all. So no, it's just in their best interest. I lose people because of it. Obviously, they want to feel at ease, or they're just looking for something else.
Yeah.
But
remember,
to me, that's been a teacher, I'm a teacher, not a therapist.
Yeah, when I had one of my sessions with you, I remember, forget what the exact was, but you asked me to maybe it's like internal rotate my leg or something like that, and I just couldn't do it, and super frustrating for me because like I'm trying, like my mind's trying to tell my body to do that, but it's not anywhere. There's zero motion in like what you're asking of me right now, and like you don't like you think you have more control or whatever over your body, and you just don't at all. I don't know. It was frustrating. So I could see how on the other that if you're telling people things that constantly rates them, it'd be difficult to kind of make progress.
Totally, yeah. And like, for people watching this, Keith is far fitter than me. He's in far better shape than me. He's far more knowledgeable about any kind of workout, fitness kind of stuff than I am. So it's not something that I'm some freak who's good at this stuff and I'm like picking on other people saying you can't do what I can do. It's not that at all. I can't do a lot of it. It's not the point. The point is you're experimenting to see if you can do it and to see what happens. And then by doing that, you get power over your own movements, power over your own mind, and then you can change yourself from the inside out. Yeah, your audio's jumping a little bit, Keith.
I promise I don't have a stutter. How about that?
Yeah, that's better, I think.
All right, it's just the regular. I nixed the microphone.
Okay.
So yeah, so I mean, like, it doesn't matter if you can take a psychophysical approach to basically anything you're doing. You just need to realize that there's for most things there's one major thing that's missing, one major part of life. If you say mind, body, emotions, spirit, or whatever, usually one of them is missing or more from something. You know, like traditionally, you know, the academic learning was completely ignored the body, and everyone's crouched over a desk, and they kind of just forgot about that part. You know, posture ignores the intellectual understanding of it. Various things focus on something, or various psychologies focus too much on the emotional stuff and ignore the other things. So yeah, I'd like to hear about like you guys' examples of this, because how do you, like, you today, Keith, you tweeted some workouts you were doing, and you were talking about you were doing movements that were to be more integrated, and rather than working on individual parts. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so that's just not my. I don't know. It's never really been my style. I never had a gym membership or anything like that, and I didn't really get interested in movement or exercise based on like your traditional, I guess, paradigm for how people think about it. Like I'm not a weightlifter or anything like that. So although I do sometimes use weights, but a lot of people break down the body into like, I'm going to do chest and back day, or I have leg day or something like that. That's just not something that I do. I just don't find that fun. So I go about exercise and movement in a way like, what are the different, like how much of my body can I recruit into this motion, and can I coordinate it all to make it, to complete what I want to do, and do so in a way where I'm recruiting the right muscle or part to assist with the motion along with the rest of my body. So it is, I think it's just more like the intention that you bring to it. Like I'm not knocking people that just do like I do leg day or whatever. Like that's their focus. They want to grow their legs or whatever, or they're training for something specific. But I am not necessarily training for something specific. I want to be capable as a whole. So that's how I train, is kind of at from a more holistic viewpoint. And remind me what your question was again, because now I felt like I was rambling a little bit.
Because you posted some videos of you doing workouts, and then you mentioned in one of the tweets underneath, you were saying about that you were doing it to be more integrated rather than to pick certain parts. So like that's kind of your, like, a philosophy you have of training in general that I would call psychophysical. So yeah, because you're now thinking about how the whole relates to the parts. You're not just sort of like the physical mentality of training. You inevitably break things into parts, and it's just all, you're just like a machine, and you want to improve each of the different elements of the machine, and then you'll have a better machine. To me, this is a complete wrong way of thinking about it.
Yeah, and I think, well, in my mind, if I'm able to do like almost train two things at once, it trains your body to depend on itself in more than one way. So I've never had any major like injuries or anything from working out. And it's not because I don't necessarily do anything intensely, but it's because I think I have built into my practice like ways to transition like motion or weight or whatever into different parts of the body if something gets too stressed. So like I could jump up and down on my ankles pretty much. And I know that's not something everybody can do, but I think the reason I can do something like that is because I'm not just training one component of my body and letting other parts wither. So I do try to train multiple things at once, or at least not have them not have one part fail while I'm focusing on other parts. So it is, in my mind, that's a more integrated practice to try to bring everything together and use your body as one thing, as opposed to I'm going to use my arms to do this motion or my legs to do this motion, my back to do this motion. In your daily life, if you're asked to do something physical, rarely are you going to be asked to do something so singular. So that's what I'm training to be more capable in general life. So I don't see it. It just doesn't appeal to me to train individual parts like that. So that is I guess bring it back to psychophysical. Like I'm trying to do all these things physically and have my mind control them at the same time. Or it's like, oh man, I'm trying to think of a good illusion, but it's as if, like you want the whole story to read through fluently. Like you can't just read one chapter at a time, jump from chapter 1 to chapter 6. You need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and that's all the different components of your body coming together. You're telling the whole story, and it's your body telling that whole movement or motion, and it all supplements one another. So I know I felt like I was rambling through that a little bit, but hopefully something came out good on the other end.
For definite, yeah. So when you're saying, so how to actually, so explain to people how you go about deciding what you're going to do each day. So you don't have the set program that you're working on for 3 months, in advance or whatever. So can you tell people your method, how you go about doing it?
Yeah, so I'll pick a certain thing, whether it's a piece of equipment, like a kettlebell, or I want to just pick a single motion, like a push-up or something like that. So I'll take that and then I'll just start experimenting with it or tinkering around with it. So I'll start with a kettlebell. You could do a normal kettlebell swing, or can you swing it to the side? Can you swing it with one arm? Can you swing it around yourself? Can you slow it down? Can you speed it up? What are the different motions? I mean, all within reason. You don't want to hurt yourself with something that's completely novel, but that's what I do is I find one thing and then I start tinkering with it and playing around with it, and that ends up being the workout. So I don't come into it, like you said, with a specific program. I'm not doing X amount of reps for Y minutes or whatever. I do something until I get tired pretty much, and then maybe a little bit more. But that's how I go about it. And so it's very much it's a creative activity. It's a playful activity. And that's how I just kind of, that's what I gravitate towards that style. So interesting. I post a lot of my videos to Twitter, obviously. And then I post fewer to Instagram. And I had someone comment on a set of videos and said, I like moving like you do, but I don't know how to start. And what I said is essentially, you don't have to be that fit or anything to start, but can you do body weight movements? Essentially, can you do push-ups? Can you do squats? Can you do lunges? Because that's kind of that's the foundation of everything I do. Even if there's not, even if there's equipment involved, it's all based on the movements that you're able to do without any equipment. So I explained, yeah, I would just get really good at one, learning those motions, body weight movements, and then you play around with them. Like, can you instead of your push-up position, like right under your shoulders, can you do it above your head and do the same push-up? Can you do different style push-ups? Can you squat to one side or on one leg as opposed to just straight up and down? Can you do it really fast? Can you do it really slow? So, I mean, that's pretty much my whole. When I don't start a workout, but I mean, my workouts last between a half an hour and 2 hours sometimes, and it's just based on trying different stuff out. And again, for different, if people have different goals, like if you want to put on a lot of muscle mass, that's not really what I do. Obviously, I'm kind of a skinny guy, but there's different modalities that you could do for certain things. But my practice, I feel like, is just very well rounded in terms of I do things that are sometimes cardiovascularly very intensive. Other things I do very slow. But my end goal is just to be very capable. Like anytime I need to ask my body to do something, I want it to be there to be able to support whatever conditions I really need to meet. So that's kind of my whole philosophy on how I work out, exercise, and stay fit. So it's not necessarily something that would work for everybody, but for me, I think it's most appropriate, and I think it's actually pretty. It's a pretty tangible thing for most people, because I think most people want to be healthy, but they don't know how to start or where to start when it comes to fitness. But if they understand it, that you're just trying to make yourself more capable in general for the daily demands of your life, or like an extreme situation, God forbid you find yourself in it, can you trust yourself that you'll be able to get yourself out? So it's not a regiment that's going to get you there. It's training for real life. So that's what I do, and I think a lot more and more people, as I explain what I do, I think they understand it and they like it. So again, it's not for everybody, but I think at least the message or the mentality resonates with a lot of people.
I like the emphasis you have on curiosity and adventure. You know, you're playing, experimenting. That's very psychophysical in my terminology, because you're already away from what we normally would call body-related stuff. You're now thinking about things. You're thinking of the future. You're giving yourself problems to solve. That's very different from getting a routine and just rattling through it, trying to get it out of the way so that the muscle that you worked on that day gets bigger the next time you look in the mirror. It's like it's something else entirely. And if you're engaging more of your emotional, like deeper emotional interests, if you're really interested in it and you want to know, can you do this thing, or what will happen if you do try this other new thing? It's engaging your whole brain and body in a way that you can't really measure. Maybe I'm sure you probably could measure some of it. It's bound to be better for your overall health and your life in general.
It's really a form of play. That's what I'm struck with when I see Keith posting his videos. He's out there. He's having fun. He's playing kind of like when I watch my kids. They do some.
I'm just a 30-year-old kid.
I mean, that's honestly like, I think that's almost the goal. You want to have this childlike approach to everything you do, because I mean, a kid isn't a kid is serious. They can be serious about things. Like they get focused. Like they're not just messing around. Play is serious business, and I think like you definitely embody that. And all the happiest, most well-adjusted people I've met throughout my life are also the ones who are able to be silly and play, whether that's, physical play, like actually playing sports or games, or just kind of, their energy is very playful. They're kind of like the, like I have a friend who's, I I don't quite know what he does. I don't know how he survives life. He doesn't appear to have a job. He's always just traveling somewhere. But he's like this big 45-year-old child who, he's quick to laugh. He's quick to get other people to laugh, and his movement practice is a lot similar to yours. Like he's,
Cool.
yeah, it's interesting. So I don't know, stick with it. It's working.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's true. I think there's you hit the nail on the head. Like, not enough people carry that mentality into your life, into like later on in their life, past childhood or whatever, like a playful attitude. And I mean, it shows. There's like a I don't know how else to describe. There's a mental flexibility that comes along with that, and probably like mental, physical, spiritual flexibility. To be honest with you, like some people, they get just so into a routine with their daily life, and they almost get worn down by it. And as their life gets boxed in, they stop moving as much. They don't think about new things, so they're not really, I don't know, exploring, enjoying. Playing around. And I mean, how can you blame anybody for that if you're trying to get through life in a certain way, and you have responsibilities and all that. But you would hope that people at least hold on to that a little bit, where they have one component of their life where they're a bit more free to act and be themselves. And I think
people are open to it, man. I've like back before this pandemic stuff, when I used to have like a group of dads at school who we'd go pick up the kids. We were all the dads who had like, we worked from home, we had flexible schedules. And so we'd always hang out after school at the kids' play. And it started out, the people were just kind of standing around on their phones. And then eventually I sort of turned it into like this workout play group for adults, so I was like, because I'd have them on the playground like doing workouts and playing games where kind of like slap fighting, things like that. So things where you get moving, you don't realize you're actually getting a workout. You're just having fun, you're kind of like engaging in mild fighting, like light fighting with another man, which I think every man kind of needs and wants, even if they don't realize it. But these were stuffy, tech guys who, probably haven't played a game other than on the computer in, decades. And they would, man, they'd be laughing, they'd be cracking up, they'd be sweating, and they wouldn't even realize that they were, acting silly. Something that they would never have thought about. So, I mean, people are definitely open to it, just random people. So, I don't know, I would say keep trying, especially as you expand your practice. I think you'll find some really interesting people out who are open to things that you might not think that they would be.
Yeah, and they might not be asking for it, but that's what they want. It's what they need, even though they don't realize they want it yet. It's when they see someone doing it, they'll just take part or copy.
Yep.
What you're describing, Eric, is you're almost reawakening like an inner child.
Mm-hmm.
Them. So I mean, it's not that, like, that concept it's not foreign to them to be playful, but it's not because it hasn't been part of their regular routine for so long. It's forgotten. So it's just a matter of trying to get people to remember that. Mm-hmm. And there's so many different. Say again.
They need playmates. I mean, you put a kid alone in a room, and they can keep themselves busy, but they're not going to be having as much fun as they would with 3 other kids. So, and adults just need playmates, we really do.
There's definitely a relationship between like rough and tumble physical play, and then there's kind of gets filtered up into, word play, people teasing each other with words, whatever. And then eventually it's like more kind of you know, you have the tech guys on the plane. He'll play the computer games, but he's doing no play with his body. Not really.
Yeah.
So like that's another example of you're splitting the mind and body. So if you're too heavy on the mind side, you get all your play in the computer game, but you have no body inside of it. And then the other side, if you get somebody who's just rough and tumble, it's too much. They need to be able to interact socially as well. And I think there's evidence now of you need the rough and tumble play to develop social skills. It's not an extra. It's essential. So I mean, a lot of the people who have problems with this may be people who didn't have enough when they were younger. They were just playing the computer games or whatever. So, I mean, the kids it's just instinctive to them. And playing with their mechanisms, try to understand how the parts work is instinctive. They just do. They automatically do it. They automatically try to reason about how the things work. And obviously, it's the cliche of kid breaking things apart to see how breaking apart the toy to see how it works, and then there's no toy left.
But, sorry about the roosters. Yeah, we got 3 of them. They're I don't know what they're doing. They're talking to each other, calling out challenges or something.
They're playing.
So talking about how we all kind of arrived at this idea of integration.
So what about you, Eric? So like, when did you first? I suppose like if you're always writing about nutrition and things on Twitter, when did you first realize that nutrition is more than just physical fuel that you just take in and then you don't need to think about it?
Well, I mean, we talked about this another chat, but I'll talk about it again. It's back when I was I got a dog when I was about 14 years ago, a puppy, and I realized that as I was pouring kibble into his bowl, that it just didn't seem like, I was like, what the hell am I feeding him? It didn't seem right, like this. And so I started to look into, what would a wild dog or a wolf eat in the wild, because that seemed to make the most sense to me. And so I started feeding him raw meat and bones and organs, and he became like this sort of physical specimen, like at the dog park, he would just be outlasting all the other dogs, and his teeth were gleaming white, and you didn't need to brush them or anything. Some people brush their dog's teeth, apparently, but I realized, so I started from the ground level. I was like, okay, I'm feeding him a species appropriate diet, and everything just kind of worked out. He didn't have to go to the doctor or the vet anymore. His poop was easy to clean up. It was, he wasn't having any stomach issues. He was happy. He was attentive. And at the time my health wasn't all that great. I was kind of working these really, really shitty jobs. Like I was a waiter. I was, working in a bar. I was even doing some grocery delivery in LA. So, real menial stuff. And sleep patterns were really bad. I was drinking a lot. I'd gained a lot of weight since high school. I weighed like 250. I was like 50 pounds overweight. And then I realized, well, if this works for a dog, because he's an animal with, evolutionary adaptations to a certain diet. I'm also an animal, so maybe there's an ancestral human diet. This is in like 2008, when the idea of ancestral nutrition was very new. Only the weirdos were talking about it. And so I started to deal with my own nutrition that way, and all my issues cleared up. I lost all the weight. I started to gain muscle. I got basically back in fighting shape, because I was a pretty good athlete all through my life, but then once college hit, I kind of let it all go. And so everything just kind of started working again, just like it did for my dog. And I got really into it, and eventually found work in that field, because again, nobody else was doing it. And so I started working with someone doing research and editing on about ancestral nutrition, and so it became my job to kind of research, like read studies about nutrition, and eventually I started to think about other ways you could apply ancestral environments to health. So it's not just food; it's how you move, how you sleep, how much sun you get, the kind of light you expose yourself to. And as I was researching, uh, it became apparent, it became undeniable that body and mind were intertwined, were inseparable, you know. And so it emerged out of just reading all these different bits of research that weren't looking at the holistic thing. They were like one might have been, exercise cuts depression, it cures depression. And obviously it's like that was a light bulb moment, so because depression, it's just brain chemicals, it's supposedly things in your head. It doesn't have like a physical corollary, but yet doing something totally unrelated, just lifting some weights or going for a walk, can cure depression. So obviously the mind and body are connected, and reading about sun exposure and cancer risk and bone density and testosterone levels. And so I just kept stumbling across all these connections between seemingly disparate fields. And I couldn't help but arrive at the conclusion that everything is connected. And, I didn't have the word psychophysical, but that's the best descriptor I can think of for what I discovered.
Yeah, I think ancestral medicine and ancestral diet definitely comes to, like that's psychophysical in its broadest sense, because you've got your whole, obviously there's the physical, and the psycho includes, social. And there's not just the kind of, genes and geography aspect of that. There's also, it's meaningful. If something's meaningful, it then changes. Obviously it's changing your physiology, but it's also changing, it just changes what you do if things are meaningful, and it's bound to have a different effect on the individual components, such as the physical results and whatever. And one thing we have in common of all what we've talked about is that everything is reasoning about things. So even to get back to a child, we're not just the person, the reasoning conscious person is involved. It's not just get a program and get rid of I go to the gym and I don't need to think about the physical, that's not done. Then I go to a therapist and get the emotional thing done, and then this, you just kind of plug things in. It's not that at all. It's especially when things are meaningful, they come together because you're reaching something deeper or higher, that you're reaching a place where things are still unified and they weren't fragmented and broken apart. And then as an adult human, you have your own individual reasoning that you can then apply to this. It's like a sort of higher level version of the child. But where most people are, they're stuck and they're not doing that. We have a kind of sort of simulated adult version. The example of being too far on the end of the video games and the rough and tumble plays is related to this, but it's just two different ways of going too far one direction. It's not that either are wrong, it's that it's too much of something. But for in terms of diet, I mean, I've found it much more easy to get myself to eat certain things if there was a meaning component to it. If it was I knew that my ancestors ate this, or just things that I know that they ate are tastier to me, and I already liked, oily fish, mackerel and butter together. I love that.
I guess
I see that so much. It's It's incredible.
But it became more meaningful as it became more meaningful as I learned it. I liked it more. So you can't separate the two things. So it's like chicken. Well, which came first? Well, it doesn't matter. It's both together. It was always both together for people. You know, it's your life, the food you're eating. Of course, it was me. It was the job job that people had was to go get the fish or whatever. It's these aren't separate things. You know, you didn't work out. You built a house that you were going to live in, or whatever. So it was already, the meaning's already built in. So, but for us now, it's a bit different. Obviously, modern civilization, you can't do all of the things like that in the old way. So there is some kind of simulation that we have to do and find as close to as possible ways without, without just being disconnected LARPing in different areas. But
that's a real trick, right? That's what you got to figure out somehow,
right?
How to integrate it into, because we are in the modern. We live today, you know, and very different situations, but we have these somewhat. Our bodies are slower to catch up, you know. So you gotta. There's a huge disintegration between what our bodies and genes expect and what the modern world presents to us, and that's always been the case. But I think things move so quickly now that it's harder to adapt on a genetic level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, one of the things that I think it's a weird way where you would notice how you notice how your life improves when you integrate different areas through like the absence of bad things. So it's not necessarily that you'd have some great epiphany or all of a sudden your energy levels go through the roof one day or something like that. But it's like over time you start doing things like you start getting out in the sun or working out regularly, eating better, and then you're like, oh wow, I fell asleep real easy, and I also woke up real easy, and I slept 8 hours. And so it's not necessarily that like something huge or profound happened. It's like, oh no, I don't struggle with sleep anymore, or I notice that I don't really struggle with sleep anymore. And I think that that's an important thing that not a lot of people realize. Like they think that there's going to be a prize at the end, like a certain thing if you start acting the right way or behaving in the right pattern or something like that. But a lot of times what it is like, oh no, I just don't have that weird nagging pain in my back that used to be there all my life, but now it's gone, or I just forgotten about it really because it's not present. So I think that's an interesting way that not a lot of people realize what happens to your life when you start to do things that all work well in concert with one another. It's like you are just experiencing the bad things or the inconveniences less.
Right.
So that opens you up to continue to do these things or explore them more, or get into them, or learn about new aspects, or like what else can I layer on top of this now that will take me to the next level. And then you do that for a year, 2 years, 3 years, a decade, and then like that's how someone really changes their life, is getting in a pattern like that over and over again.
Yeah, I think some people are expecting sort of a drug-like effect, you know, where you make a change, or I see this with supplementation a lot. People are like, oh, that didn't do anything. You know, you took like magnesium for a week or something, you know. I think their frame of reference is, you know, I don't know, like smoking weed or drinking a bottle of wine, where you get that instant effect.
Or taking a painkiller.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's sort of the hurdle that you have to get past, that not everybody does, because you don't see those instant results. You don't get instant feedback. And I think because we're so far gone that
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, it just takes a while, because our natural state is to be free of these maladies that affect us. We're just supposed to be because you look at a baby, they start from like optimal health, like assuming everything goes right. They start from really good health. Like a baby, once they can start walking, they can sit in a full squat. They can support their own body weight hanging from a bar from birth, actually. uh they're super flexible. They probably have good posture. I don't know, don't quote me though. Kevin, can you confirm?
That's a long topic. We'll leave that for
Yeah,
another one.
yeah.
Yes and no.
But I mean, kids start relatively, I mean, they're innocent of spirit. Like they kind of start from ground zero, and so many people are so far from it that and it takes so long to get back using natural means that they often give up before any progress is made.
Yeah, and you also did little steps, especially in the beginning. The feelings, the feeling feedback you get does not necessarily correlate well with the actual progress you're making. So you might actually be making progress, but you feel a bit crap at the beginning, so you just quit and do something else.
Yeah.
And that may just be part of it, or it may not be. So like, you can make the other mistake expecting everything good for you has to be like no pain, no gain, and really like torture yourself, or it's another error, too far one way. But and then that will spill over into other areas. So you'll start, like you're saying, you just start noticing something's better in a different area that wasn't really connected. So like your example is you sleep better. You were working out, so you sleep better. So then you wake up and then you're in a better mood and your relationships are suddenly working better. You didn't even notice that either. You're just suddenly, and then you're back to this whole kind of psychophysical change that's happening on some deeper, higher level. It's not, you can't really pick at it. And then somebody else, if somebody asks for advice or what you do, and they're wanting you to give one piece of advice of one thing you're doing or one area, you can't really give them it because it's in this bigger context, and obviously it's unique to you, and it's hard to, you have to kind of pick out the principles that you're applying, and then they have to figure it out for themselves, which is one of the things I think we're doing here, is helping people think about this stuff so then they can figure out how to do it for themselves. Rather than this constant asking for the magic pill, what's the best way of this, what's the best one of this, and that whole way of thinking is just a dead end.
That's, it's funny. What I've noticed is that people who have a lot of weight to lose, like they stick to the rest of this, like they kind of make a larger holistic change and stick to it for the rest of their lives. I think because that's losing weight rapidly is sort of instant feedback, and you create this positive association with the lifestyle changes. I think people who are actually they've always been kind of lean, or they look healthy, it's harder for them almost, because what do they have to, there's nothing really, it's like Keith described, it's just these gradual changes. There's no big aha moment like, oh, I just lost 20 pounds in a few weeks. Like that could really shift your thinking for life. I think that's what I've noticed.
And the emotions will change for the person along with that, and then the kind of curiosity, what else does this, it just bursts open possibilities. And your the level of your brain, it's all been wired, your brain's now all been wired differently, different emotions and movements and stuff that you weren't doing before. If you keep that up, as long as you don't stop too soon, you're going to be different forever. You've properly changed yourself. How long that is obviously depends on the person, what you're doing, but it's not, you have to keep pushing. It's always after the time when you get bored of it and you want to stop or move on. There's always at least one time where you're close to not doing it. And then you to stopping it, and then when you go past that, then now it's almost like that's nature's way of telling you you're almost at the point where it's going to become permanent or relatively permanent. Keep going.
Think so. I think there's something to that. I think nature, or whatever it is, has little messengers. There are ways of telling you things. Because I've often said that every time I've ever been injured is when I've ignored. I have a little inclination, like a little something is telling me, like, oh, don't, just drop the weight, like don't lift, like back out, don't lift today, go do something else. And then whenever I ignore that is when I get injured. So there's always, whenever I look back in retrospect, there's always a warning that I get from either my body, like something feels weird, or it's just a mental premonition that, like words in my head say, no, why don't you do this? And so I've started listening to that now, but literally every time I ever injured myself exercising or playing sports was when I ignored that voice. So those voices they're very real, whatever they are. Yeah. So I believe that.
I would agree with that, and not necessarily even in terms of just preventing injury or something like that, but anything. Like if you get that idea in your head and you don't act on it right away, it goes away, and then you kick yourself down the line. Or someone else came up with that idea, someone else did that something, or if I had done it at that time, I saw someone else do it at the same time, and they whatever improved something drastically. But I think a big component of that is just training yourself to notice those things, because a lot of times people are just blind to that. Like they have these ideas all the time, things they could do, but they're not perceptive in that way enough to pick up on them and act on them. So like if you actually trust the words that are coming into your head, and you do so unassumingly, like without passing a judgment on them, before you act on it, then I think that's something that more people would do well to get into, is actually pay attention to what's happening in your mind or in your body, because you get clues all the time, but it's a matter of, do you have the vision to see them? And once you have the vision to see them, do you have the wherewithal to act on them? So it's all those things combined, and it happens. It's like, that may sound a little bit more profound than it is, but it's like that little chain of things is one small thing that people can do to improve. And even if it's like, where would you start with something like that? Like, start just writing down the thoughts in your head, and try not to make a judgment about them, and then just do it for a month and see what, like, oh, if I had done that earlier on, or I had acted on that, like, where would I be now, or something like that. But I don't know if that's necessarily useful example of an exercise you could do, but I think the point is that, like, people don't notice everything that they should notice, and maybe they notice some other stuff too much, like they're distracted by external things, when you have all this stuff going on internally that's giving you signals or direction. And you do much better, or you would be happier, or I don't know, you just feel better about yourself if you started trusting your own words a bit more, and acting on the things that your body or your mind were signaling you to do, as opposed to paying attention to everything externally and taking in whatever ads from this place or whatever you read online and all that stuff. You got so much wisdom built into yourself, and not a lot of people realize that. So to turn that, I don't know, the mind's eye inward and see those things, is important. And I think more people would impress themselves by what they were able to, what they're always revealing to themselves, but they never paid attention to before.
Yep.
So what's something?
Sounded silence.
So thinking about
We got
what
the
you said.
rooster. It's okay.
What's that?
So what is something that so someone's listening to us talk, assuming there's 4 of them left. What's something someone can do to start holistic, like some kind of fitness thing? What is something someone can do to make a start of having a more psychophysical approach to their fitness? What's something someone could do this week that's realistic?
Is that a question for me?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, here's something small that anybody can do, and it takes about 20 seconds, but I think it's really important, especially if it's not something that you've done before. But can you sit in a place, lay down, wherever you may be, but then just really concentrate and do a internal audit of your body. Can you sit there, close your eyes, and like scan your body from head to toe? Can you feel can you feel the top of your head? Can you go through? Can you wiggle your ears? Can you move your eyes? Can you bring that awareness all the way straight down your body through to your fingertips and your toes? I think that's something small people can do, and it's something that's actually something I like to do at the beginning of a workout. And it's not an inconsequential thing. One, everything that you were doing prior to the workout, whether it was work or you were with other people, you had a fight with someone, or you're just not present, it immediately brings you back into the present moment because you have to focus on everything that's going on there. So you bring your awareness back to where you are, as opposed to thinking, my boss yelled at me, or I got in a fight with my friend or something like that. Or what am I going to have for dinner later on or something. So it brings you to the present moment, and it brings a psychological awareness to your physical body. So you all of a sudden maybe feel like areas of tension, or a lot of people just don't know how to move their feet or their toes or whatever, because they don't really pay attention to it. There's not that connection between their mind and that area of their body. So it's something small. It takes, you could have it take as long as you want, but you could do that in 30 seconds and just scan from the top of your head down to your toes, all the different areas of your body. And that's a psychophysical connection. You're bringing your conscious awareness to your physical body.
Cool. And Eric, is there someone, if you just take in the context of nutrition, you were saying it's hard to get quick feedback. Is there anything that someone can do that will give them some kind of quick feedback, or that they could experiment with that would be realistic to do this week?
Let's see. Well, whenever I talk to people about
take niacin.
Oh yeah, just take a 2,000 milligrams of niacin, flush niacin. Feel something. No, don't do that. Well, when I talk to people about this ancestral diet stuff, specifically the diet of your recent ancestors, like your nationality or your ethnicity, I'll usually just tell people to look up a traditional recipe from the last 1,000 years from your most recent. Like if you're Scottish, you'd look up medieval Scottish recipes. And so there's a lot of research, there's a lot of resources out there. There's probably few enough listeners that if you want to reach out to me, I could probably help you and not be too burdened. I'd actually love to help. I love doing that. But yeah, just look up a traditional recipe or food that your ancestors ate in the last 1,000 to 2,000 years, and then integrate it into your diet. Just start, whether you have to make it or buy it, and see how you feel, and pay attention to the way it makes you feel emotionally, because that's what I found with a lot of people is they'll start eating something that I recommend that's from their ancestry, and it scratches an itch they didn't realize they had. Like it tastes good, sure, and it provides nutrition, but there's something intangible in it that hasn't been quantified, but yet still affects them, like spiritually. Yeah, so that's what I recommend.
Awesome. And what I recommended earlier was people, the first step of doing something about your posture is to get out of being the swamp of your feelings, and to just take a video and look at the video. Just watch yourself, spend 20 minutes, record yourself for 20 minutes, and then just watch it back and play it on high speed and stuff, and see the things you do. That's the first step. You probably won't like what you see, but you will see something that you didn't feel, and you don't even remember doing some of it. So this is a hint to what you're gonna have to try and figure out to go to the next step. So cool. So that's probably a good place to stop this week.
Yeah. Thanks. See you.
All right. See you guys.
Cool. That was fun.